Hello everyone, today on Scottish Memories I am chatting to Karen Bartke. So how are you all? I hope you are all happy and healthy and safe out there wherever you are. Just before we get started, if you haven't already, please remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It would really genuinely mean the world. And if you are listening out there on podcast, please remember to leave a review. 5 stars if you don't mind. That'd be lovely. That'd be really nice. Thanks very much. But today I am really excited. I'm over the moon to be chatting to Karen Bartke. Karen is a Scottish actress who you will recognise from things like Monarch of the Glen, Night is Day, Cops and Monsters, Captain Lockdown, The Sandman, Lost at Christmas, and of course she is Sergeant Karen in the Scottish sitcom Scot Squad. Karen, hello, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for sparing the time and coming on and chatting. It means the world to me. It really, really does.
Not at all. I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited to chat about all things Scottish, to be honest.
It's funny how much we like to chat about Scotland, how proud we are in a little way. That was like, yeah, I'll talk about it.
Absolutely. If you cut me, I bleed iron brew and iron brew chews and potato scones and mostly potato and iron based foodstuffs.
Yeah, which is generally what we live on, really. It really, really is. Just before we get started, how are you? Are you happy and healthy and well and everything like that?
I am, yeah. I've been disgustingly lucky compared to a lot of other people in lockdown in that I share a house with my mum. So I have been able to see my mum, which I know a lot of people haven't, which has been horrific for loads of people. So I've had company and I've been able to find things to do, work, not so much acting work, a little bit of acting work, but I've been able to find other jobs that I can do to keep me ticking over. So I've been very lucky, all things considered, and the vaccination programme now is on the way. So I'm hoping that soon the people that are important to me will be getting the first, stab in the arm, and then that will take a bit of a weight off my mind.
Yeah. So. I'm kind of at that point as well now. My mum's had her letter, which is brilliant, and my dad, who is older than my mum, has not had a letter, but he's been told that he will just get a phone call and say, "Come in."
Well, I was thinking about that this morning actually, because my mum has had a letter, and she's going very soon, but her sister hasn't. But her sister has. We thought we'd get contacted first because she had to shield the first time round. But I think it's because shielded people are being contacted directly by their GPs, whereas everybody else is being done in categories and going to like the big mass vaccination centres.
Yeah.
And the GP surgeries are getting their doses in smaller but more regular deliveries. So what they're doing is they're contacting people as soon as your dose arrives, I will give you a phone kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's why, in an odd way, my mum's going before her sister, who we thought would be a more of a thing.
It kind of does make sense, I suppose. Like I said, my mum has got a letter, and that my mum and dad phoned the doctors because they were like, "How have I got a letter, but he hasn't?" They're like, "It's fine. There's doses arriving on Thursday." They're very, they're arguing that you should get a phone call. If you don't, phone us on Friday, and then we should be. And it's so, as long as they know what they're doing, that's
absolutely fine. No, I'm putting all my faith in the NHS. I know that these people are killing themselves to get this done, so I'm quite happy as long as I don't get left with one family member who crucially never gets a vaccine. Then I'm quite happy to wait. We've waited this long. So another 6 weeks
we've came this far now. It doesn't really make a difference now, does it? We're exactly the same. We're exactly the same. And truth, I mean, I've been very lucky because as I've told you, we've got a 4-month-old. And by chance, I've got to spend the time with my wife through the pregnancy, and now the first 4 months of my daughter's life, I've got to just be here.
Yeah,
that's as much as it's horrible what's going on around the world. That's priceless. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I've been very lucky with that. Very, very lucky. So we're off on a tangent already. We'll dive right in. You're a Glasgow lass. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I am born and bred and raised and still.
And still.
Glasgow is where I've always lived here. I do feel very much that this is my home. I can't really imagine living anywhere else. I've lived down in London for periods of work, and I'm perfectly happy to be other places when I'm working, but I always want to come home, and home is here.
That's nice. That's it. I mean, I'm an Edinburgh lad, and the two cities
Yeah.
are very, very different.
Yes.
And great. I'm a rare Edinburgh lad that I love Glasgow. I think it's brilliant. Possibly because I'd come through for auditions a lot because that's where they are. They're
Yeah.
all through in Glasgow, so I'm through there all the time anyway. So I've grown to love the place. But you guys have got a humour and a qualities about you that we just don't have this end.
Yeah, I must admit, Edinburgh is very pretty. It's a lovely place to visit, but I don't feel the kind of earthy comfortableness that I feel in Glasgow. For all that I'm not going to lie, there are pockets of Glasgow that I would be very cautious about walking through. I'm not,
That's the
not
same as
saying it's
Edinburgh,
perfect,
though. That's the same here as well.
but I feel I feel more comfortable here, and I feel. I mean, some of it's just sheer familiarity. Some of it's just what I know. But yeah, I like the fact that you can end up having a random gab with somebody at a bus stop, or in fact, you can't avoid having a random gab with somebody at a bus stop, to be perfectly honest, or in a shop, or I really like that. It was one of the things I always felt really weird about it in London, because I would go into shops. In fact, I'll never forget. I was down in London, right, for an audition for something, and I had arrived first thing in the morning. The audition was in the middle of the day, and my mega bus home was at like 11:30 at night. So I had just days to kill, and it was quite close to Christmas. So I was wandering about going, oh, I'm going to absorb all the Christmas atmosphere. And I'm into Marks and Spencer's to buy like a cake or something, just something to do. I'll get this wee cake. And I went up to the checkout, and I was like, oh, it's quite cold out, isn't it? And the checkout operator literally looked at me like, I need to phone security. Who is this woman? Why is she talking to me? I was like, okay, thanks, bye.
You're not wrong though, because I went to drama school in London, so I was down there for a while, and the whole you're right. There is no gentle banter, I suppose, is probably the nice way to say it.
Well, I'm not sure. I'll tell you why. Because I thought that for a while, and I still, when I'm down, I realise I become more Glaswegian when I'm down in London than I am when I'm in Glasgow. I speak to more people in London than in Glasgow, almost like I'm determined to prove that we're friendly. I'll be honest, psychologically that may tell people a lot, but I'm like, no, Glasgow people smile at people on the underground, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm like, around the cabin. But when I stayed down there for about 5 months at one point, when I was working on something, and the place that I was staying, you had to walk up the road to get to the train station, and there was a kind of coffee and bakery place on the way up, a chain place, and they did a coffee and a pastry for £2 if you bought it before a certain time in the day, which is like spectacularly good.
Yeah.
So I went in to get a coffee and a pastry, and I'd spent ages thinking about going in and what I was going to get. And everybody's really polite in London. They're always perfectly present and civil. They're really polite, and they say please and thank you and have a nice day. But it's quite formal. It's quite it's disconnected. And so I went in and I said, hi, I'd really like to get a coffee and a pastry, please. And she went, oh, okay, what kind of coffee would you like? And I said, well, a latte, please. And she said, and what kind of pastry? And I was like, probably that apricotty one. And she went, and what coffee beans do you want? And I was like, I don't know, because I hadn't thought that far. and the fact that I actually had a spontaneous reaction, I was in the shop for about 10 minutes. She was desperate to have a chat. But I think nobody in London wants to be the person that starts it.
Right.
That's all it is. It's not that they don't want to talk. They just don't want to talk first. So if you start a conversation, like everybody joins in.
We'll jump in, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's more. I don't think it's that they're not friendly or that they're not personable or that they don't have banter. I think they're just really worried about coming across as pushy if they try to talk to you first. That's my
At
theory.
some point, one of us should just say to them all, "You're allowed to chat." Just give them permission, then all of a sudden they'll just all be like, "Hello, how are you? What are you doing?" It might be interesting that once all this stops, they might just all jump in. They'll be so excited to see people again. They'll be like, "Yes, this is how we do it."
Absolutely. Just like, oh God, please can I speak to someone who's not someone in my household?
It's funny. I remember that when we were chatting there. I remember an old Jason Manford sketch, and he was talking about he had a friend up from London, and they were walking along the route of Hadrian's Wall. They're walking by Hadrian's Wall, and they'd been walking for about an hour or so, and then they see someone in the distance gradually come towards, and then they get to each other, and this guy goes, "All right," and Jason goes, "All right," and then they walk past, and then his mate from London goes, "Did you know him?" I said, "No, we're just saying hello." It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. So where in Glasgow roughly did you grow up then?
Bayliston, East End of Glasgow. So I went to the house that I lived in straight from the maternity hospital and stayed there until I was in my 30s. And then moved slightly further into the town by about a mile. So I'm still in the suburbs of the East End of Glasgow. So the bit that I live in, or the bit that I grew up in, is not that far from Easterhouse and not that far from Shettleston, which are two of the areas which obviously people around the world will have heard of because the deprivation index there is quite high. But I lived in this really nice bit in the middle between the two of them where it was actually quite pleasant, and it had been, it used to be part of Lanarkshire. It only became part of Glasgow the year I was born, which would tell everybody how old I am because all they have to do is Google that and they'll know. So I was born in 1972. It's a very long time ago. And Bayliston had been part of Lanarkshire up to that point. So it was a mining district. And obviously the mines all shut down.
Yeah.
So it kind of got absorbed as Glasgow spread out. And it was kind of the last place. And we were the boundary. And the Bayliston interchange was legendary on Radio Clyde for decades because lorries used to overturn all the time. So you would wake up in the morning and be going, a lorry has overturned at the Bayliston interchange. I'm like, oh, what a surprise. Because it's a great big flyover, a really big round flyover.
Yeah.
And you take it too fast and just tip over. So so you could look out my window sometimes and see them and see the cab driver try to like crawl up the other side and get out of the lorry before it fell into the road below. So
I thought you were going to say for a second trying to push his lorry back over.
No. I mean, it was quite hairy because it's quite the
yeah, it's a drop.
And there's the roundabout takes you into the M73 and the M74. But if they tipped over, they were basically looking at dropping into the M8. Yeah. And I think there were a couple of them who were sort of going, oh, I don't know if I'm getting out of this, kind of like crawling across the floor of the cab and trying to jeep you out the side. So.
Yeah, because I have to say, like when I started to drive through things, the sort of the overpasses and things in Glasgow, since we don't have this end, it's a bit intimidating at first. And you're right, that drop there is scary.
Aye.
Especially if you're a tipped over lorry, it'd be really scary.
I don't fancy it at all. Doesn't look fun at all. So yeah, but so I've always, again, I think the East End probably has quite a reputation. Well, it does have quite a reputation as being an area where there was a lot of violence. There's the Barrel gang from Barlanark is quite legendary around the world as one of the particularly worrying Glasgow gangs and stuff. And Easterhouse and Shettleston, there is a lot of poverty in parts of the East End. There's a lot of poverty everywhere, unfortunately. Yeah. But again, I've always found it a really comfortable place. I've never felt frightened in the areas that I know and spend time in. And there's been an awful lot of redevelopment in this area, certainly in the last 20 years. So there's more employment. One of the great things is they opened a big retail park called the Fort, Glasgow Fort, and you have to live within, well, no, not all of you, but a proportion of all the staff must live within certain postcode areas to ensure that jobs were available for people from the local area rather than.
That's a brilliant idea. That was a great idea.
Just think, what a great way of bringing an area up, introducing extra employment, and you know, so absolutely fair play to them. People have worked really hard to try and bring this area up, and you do see it a lot. There's a lot more modern housing, and a lot of the housing in Easter House and Cranhill and places like that's had been developed and improved. So it's, you know, it's really come up, and it's a nice, friendly place. It still feels a bit villagey at times, because I used to work in the local pub near here, and I got into a dispute with one of the punters one night because he insisted I wasn't from here. And I was like, I was literally born here. I wasn't born here, I was born in the hospital, but then I came straight here. And he insisted I wasn't from here because A, my grandparents weren't from here, and B, I pronounced Baillieston wrong. Because if I was really from here, I'd have called it Baillieston. And I was like, okay. So
it's funny those sort of little quirks and those little local quirks of people in it. But it's funny when you started to touch on a bit with the miners. When all those sort of things started to shut, the area I grew up in was very similar to that. It was a very mining area, and I was born in '76, so it was still very there at the time. You know, where the miners' clubs were, the miners' clubs, which were the heart of a community, were all very there. And my wife's a little bit younger. I remember driving through that area and pointing out, going, "Oh, that's the old miners' club," and now it's flats. Now it's broken up into flats, but that was the heart of the place at one point. That's where everyone went. And I suppose when we think about it nowadays, because obviously we're going to more greener energy everywhere, if they hadn't been shut down in the 80s and things, they would have been getting it now anyway, which is it's not a nice way to look at it anyway. For everything, communities were devastated by it, but that sort of thing, it did damage it, and I think it's taken a while for that to come to grow back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. You know, because I'm not, the area of Glasgow I'm in is not that far from places like Motherwell, where when the Ravenscraig steelworks shut down, you know, that just decimated an entire town. Yeah. Because everybody worked at Ravenscraig, and suddenly it wasn't there, and there were no jobs, and so yeah, the changing nature of employment in Scotland and the nature of our society and how we're living it makes a huge difference, and it is harder, I think, sometimes to have a centre to your community in the way that people used to. Having said that, I now live in a lovely, very span-belty middle class area where the bowling club is exceptionally well attended. And it's a one in, one out policy. So you're really, you know, people are checking the obituaries to see if anybody's going, because there will be an opening. So, you know, it is still possible for there to be, you know, and the church in this area is also somewhere that's still a heart of the community, and the pubs as well. So, which I think is one of the reasons why, again, lockdown's been really hard, because people, the local pub that I worked in, everybody had a spot, not even a seat, but like a spot where they stood at the bar. And all the regulars knew that the best way to get served was to learn the barmaids' names. Because if you knew the barmaid's name, you could just be like, Karen, do you want to get me? And people had like what they had, you know, their usual, and we were expected to know. So there was one guy called Willie Two Halves, because he had a pint, but he had it in 2 half-pint glasses, because he thought it didn't go flat as fast. So he would get a pint, but he had to put it in 2 half-pint glasses. And there was another guy who always drank the same whiskey, but he had to have exactly 2 cubes of ice in it. But he wouldn't tell you that. You just had to know. So the first time you got it wrong, you would just be like, and other people would tell you what he was upset about, and you're like, oh my God, okay, sorry, I'll fix it. So, you know, I feel like a lot of people in this area are really struggling with the pubs being shut at the moment, because it was their social hub.
Yeah.
You know,
I think once we start to get back to normal, these places, I mean, the hospitality in general has been destroyed. It really has. But I think these places will maybe start to get that sense of community that they've lost a little bit, because people will be wanting to see people. People will be wanting to
Absolutely.
catch up and say, "What have you done?" "Nothing. I've watched TV for a year." "What about you?" "Yeah, exactly the same."
I grew older and slightly chubbier, or
Yeah.
significantly chubbier, depending on how well lockdown's been going for you.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely got chubbier, but I think as well as lockdown, that a lot of that's been I've needed to eat more for lack of sleep for a 4 month being in the household. So that I've got two excuses there. I'm covered this time. I'm covered this time. So growing up, how did you get to explore Scotland on holidays? Was it staycations or was it?
Yeah, we didn't actually go a huge number of holidays. I have to be honest. So we spent time Ayr and Butlins. We went to Ayr, went to Butlins with my gran. Stranraer, Whithorn, went to a caravan in Whithorn, and then I went back to Whithorn when I was at university. I studied archaeology at university, and I did a dig at Whithorn 2 years. Um,
When I was
so
doing, obviously, I do background studies on everyone a little bit before I come on and chat. And when I saw that you'd done archaeology first, I was like, that's a jump. Archaeology to performing.
Well, do you know, funnily enough, I spoke to somebody a couple of years ago, and something they asked me made me think about it. And I was like, oh, actually, I can see why it's similar. So the thing about archaeology is you get a limited amount of information because you only get the stuff and how it went into the ground a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And what you then do is you try and take that and extrapolate it out and figure out how that person must have been living for that to end up in the ground that way. And then, but if you're acting, somebody gives you a script and you've only got a limited amount of information because you only know what they say and what other people say around about them. You don't know anything about where they came from beforehand or where they're going afterwards. So you're basically doing the same thing in a weird way. You're
Yeah.
trying to fill out all the rest of the information based on what's in front of you. And it's kind of archaeology to an extent is an imaginative process because unless somebody in the 600s invented movie cameras and we didn't realise, and one day we stumble across footage of how people lived, it's a guess, really. It's an
Yeah.
educated guess, but it's still a guess. And I think, so I see acting in a weird way as being kind of similar to that. I'm taking a limited amount of stuff and then trying to fill out the rest of the picture by looking at that information and using my imagination. So
That makes sense. That doesn't, when you put it like that, it does make total sense. It does make total sense. And I suppose when you're out in any sort of archaeology as well, you're probably going to have to make a presentation at some point. You're going to be in front of a crowd. You're going to be talking to them. So the two things, I suppose, marry quite hand in hand in a strange sort of way.
yeah, I think so. And it's more just, I suppose it comes back to kind of a nosiness and a fascination about how other people go about their day, really.
Yeah.
Trying to
And
figure out how
we're
they
all
live
a bit
their life.
nosy, really. So,
Yeah.
we could lie, but we're all a bit nosy, really.
Oh, absolutely. I'm wildly nosy. Not as bad as my mum, who's just a pure, like, glaring out the window one, but
A little carton twitcher, sort of thing.
what are you doing, mum? Nothing. I was just wondering what that van was up to. All right, okay. No, that's unfair. My poor mother. I'm being very mean.
But they go back to the holidays things. The caravan and the Butlins at Ayr is I think Butlins are brilliant.
It was, do you know, it was great. I particularly, it was that kind of era where Butlins was somewhere that people who couldn't afford to go on expensive holidays could potentially find a way to get to. I'm not saying it was cheap, but it made it accessible for families who just didn't have the wherewithal to go to Spain,
Yeah.
or anything like that. So I didn't leave the country. I never left the UK until I was mid to late 20s, I think. I can't remember, but I certainly never went on a foreign holiday when I was young.
Yeah.
But being able to go to Butlins for a week with my gran and my cousins, and there was tons for us to do, and it was a big change, it was a big adventure, and we used to go to the Isle of Bute as well because my aunt Peggy lived there, and taught old time country dancing, and she lived in this amazing cottage. It was beautiful. So me and my gran went to stay with her, and I think yeah, Scottish based holidays for families who weren't well off were very much the norm when I was young.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Or we day trips. We day trips
yeah,
we seem to do that a lot here.
yeah.
Like, I don't know why that's in Breadbus, but we'll just go, like, we'll jump in the car, we'll jump on the train and we'll go to here during the day. But we do that a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's so much that's, I think, in a weird way, because particularly from the Central Belt, there's so many places you could go. You could spend your entire life doing day trips and you probably wouldn't cover it all. And there's loads to see. You can get to Fife in under, what, 2 hours from Glasgow?
Yeah.
You can go to, you can go all through Ayrshire, you can get down to the borders, you can get halfway up to, you can get to Oban in a couple of hours. So you can cover, and there's so much to see.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The scene, I mean, 40 minutes to Loch Lomond. It's incredible the stuff you can see. And yeah, and all the seasidey towns, Dunoon and Saltcoats. And I remember, I was just thinking that. So you get Saltcoats, Stevenson, and Ardrossan. And I can't remember which one's in the middle, but I remember driving back and forth and we couldn't find the one in the middle. We were supposed to be going to the one in the middle and we couldn't find it. We're like, I don't understand, but it was like a weird sci-fi thing. We just kept missing it because we were going to go to the beach and just walk on the beach and then leave. But there's so much to see. Really accessible to Glasgow, and if you have access to a car, man, you could spend every day. I love going. Me and my mum sometimes go a drive when we're allowed, obviously not at the moment. Down to Ayr. There's a place called the Coo Shed in Ayr, on a farm, and it's got a milk vending machine. So you get you get a glass bottle.
Is that not a cow?
No, well, yeah. You don't see that end of it. You only see
Right.
the other end when it comes out of the machine. But like we'll take a drive down Ayr just to get a pint, like 2 pints of milk. Come back. You've got a vending machine for like cakes and stuff as well, so you can get cakes too. But that kind of thing. Let's just go Ayr and we'll get milk, and then we'll stop and we'll go a walk along the beach, and then we'll come back, and it's half an hour's drive each way, so it's not that kind of exhausting travel to go and see something.
Yeah.
But it feels like a wee adventure, a wee day away.
I
love that.
I couldn't agree more. We're very, I suppose, I mean, you guys in Glasgow and us here, yeah, okay, they're cities, but we're not, world-wise, we're not massive cities.
No.
It's very, very, very easy for us to be in the heart of Glasgow or Edinburgh, and within 20 minutes to half an hour, we can be in the country.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And we can explore so many places. So we're very lucky, really. We really are.
Hugely. I know certainly once I was at university and I got a car. I inherited my granddad's car thanks to my dad's lovely family. And me and my friends used to go runs. That was what we did, and we would drive in the middle of the night. We would drive to Largs and just get out and walk about on the beach a wee bit and drive back, or go to Loch Lomond or Oban or Helensburgh or go to Edinburgh or Fife, and it was just every time you went there was so many different things to see. I mean, there's stuff like there's a place called the Falls of Falach, which is off the road, so you go up towards Loch Lomond and it's maybe an hour and a half drive. And you go into the car park, go out, and there's these fantastic waterfalls. And you're just like, look at that. Or Lanark. New Lanark, there's these, the Falls of Clyde, and it's just beautiful, and there's so much. I think the other thing is Glasgow really hangs on to its historic buildings a lot.
I think that's definitely a Scottish thing. We keep it. So,
aye.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it is a Scottish thing. I'm very conscious of it in Glasgow, and people get really arsey if they're going to knock something down.
Yeah.
Which I think is why so many things mysteriously go on fire eventually. But that's kind of by the by. But so you can go around and there are just these stunning, beautiful buildings, and the actual town centre looks lovely because there are chunks of it that haven't really changed. So you're not looking at all that modern glass stuff. You've actually got, 18th, 19th century terraces and sandstone structures and statuary, and it's beautiful. And again, I was really conscious of that down in London. There was tiny bits where you're like, okay, that's London's history, but they flattened most of it.
Yeah.
Now, I appreciate the Luftwaffe did some of it, but quite a lot of it's been done since then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
but you're right. We do hold on to it in a good way. We're like when you get a chance. I obviously, I've only got my experiences here more than I have in Glasgow, but I do love walking around, and then you just see a sign on a building, and go built 17 whatever, and you're like that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
I remember an Eddie Izzard sketch. Sorry, most of my quotes come from other comedians, but I remember an Eddie Izzard quote when he was doing a gig in America. I think he was doing it in San Francisco, and he was talking about them on a refurbishment program, and it's like, we've rebuilt this building to how it looked 50 years ago, and you're like, no one was alive then, really? And you're like, 50 years ago.
Americans have only got 200 years of history, so they're really possessive about it, to be fair. I remember thinking that watching, like, Time Team did an American Time Team thing, and they were digging stuff up that was nearly 100 years ago, and you're like, oh, mate. And they were dead excited. The Americans were like, whoa.
I know.
Tony Robbins, I've been digging stuff up that's 1,000 years old just like last week, and they weren't even being careful with it because there was tons of it.
We've got a thing on the wall here. When we decorated our place here, not long after we moved in, I was scraping the wallpaper in the living room, and there was some beautiful pencil written on the wall. You know, like everyone does decorating. It was beautiful, joint up calligraphy writing. It was lovely handwriting, and it said 1911. And I had to go to Kristen. That's the year before the Titanic sank. Just on the wall in pencil in the house, you know what I mean? And that's lovely. That's over 100 years ago. That's fine. It's on my wall. It's under my wallpaper.
We did that in my mum's room, and we found stuff on the wall in pencil, and it was people that had lived here, I think, in the 50s. Yeah. And they had drawn their caravan and stuff that they liked to stay in, and I took pictures of it because we had to get it plastered over. But because there had been like built-in wardrobes that had been here, you know, when we arrived, and we were getting them replaced. And when we took them down, obviously the walls were kind of knackered, but that had been behind these beautiful built-in wardrobes, and it was lovely just thinking that history's there. And I know it's behind paint and plaster now, but I know that it's still there.
Yeah, it's there, and it's safe, and it's locked away. So you know, and 50 odd years again, someone else will find it again and get excited about it. It's nice. Someone will find my signature beside the 1911 one as well. Me going, I'm here as well.
Absolutely. I think Scottish people, it's unfair to make sweeping generalisations, but I think we have a real appreciation of history, or a real affection for our history.
I think it does come to the fact that we have a history that goes back a long, long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a bit more inbuilt in us a little bit, I think.
I think so, but then, you know, the rest of the UK has just as much of a backstory to it, but I think there's more of, is it fair to say that? I'm just assuming that. I feel like there's more of a sense of place and connection to our past in Scotland, and that people, it's quite romanticised, but I think people do feel a real connection to what's gone before and people that have gone before, and I think that's why we do hang on to all our historic buildings, and because there's just a love of that feeling of how long we've been in this land and how much of it's still not known. I mean, like, because there's tons of bits of Scotland I've never seen.
Yeah,
still, me too. And I've seen a lot of it.
So yeah, it's one of the things that I'm really bad for. There's so much I want to see, and you know, it's like 1 minute you're like, yeah, we need to get there, and it's 2 years later, and you're like, yeah, we still need to get there.
Yeah. But I've been so lucky though, because of various jobs that I've done. I did a tour of a play, and we did the Highlands, so we did tons of little tiny places. Went to the Orkneys. I went to the Orkneys when I was at uni as well. So I spent time on like really small islands as well as the sort of the main islands. Um, and then I worked for a company that did a kind of outdoor shows for kids and murder mysteries and stuff. And so I went to tons. I went to Muck, um, which is the island next to Egg. So you get Muck, Egg, and Rum. And we went to Muck and did a show for the entire population of Muck because there's only 38 people on the island. Um,
Brilliant.
and I've been up to Lewis and Harris on a different tour and spent time up there in Stornoway and went to see the Calnie Stones and so and I feel really lucky because I've actually seen a lot more of Scotland as a result of my job than I ever would have otherwise. But there's still tons of it left.
Yeah, because you've kind of preempted my question, because my next question was going to be, since with your touring and doing plays and things, there are places that make you go, I love it when we go to there. I love it when I've got a gig that takes me to there. Have you got a favourite?
I couldn't actually pick a favourite because there's so many of them. The Orkneys are incredible.
Yeah.
The Orkneys are really beautiful. I don't know what it is about there. There's a kind of quality to the light that I can't describe, but it just everything looks amazing because the light's just a bit different up there. And it's so, I mean, you could use the word bleak, I suppose, in a way, because there's like no trees. So there's just landscape all around about it, but it's stunning.
Yeah.
And the seas round about it are amazing. When I was on Lewis and Harris, I've been up there a couple of times, and that's gorgeous as well. There's an incredible beach called Liscantire on the island of Harris, which is just, we went there when we were on tour, and I was paddling for about 2 hours, just walking back and forth along the beach. It was the most peaceful place in the world.
It's one of those things that it's came up in a few interviews that you would not expect it, but we have got some incredible beaches in Scotland.
Oh yeah. Well, Liscantire's like they use it as a substitute for like Thailand and stuff like that when they're filming adverts. Sometimes it's got this incredible golden sand and the sea's like turquoise, crystal blue. Mull, there's a couple of beaches on the island of Mull that are just stunning. The Devil's Pool Pit, which is like, again, it's a kind of a little gorge, and it's 45 minutes away from here. That's
the one thing as well. That's the other good thing we've got as well. It doesn't take us long to get to anywhere.
Yeah.
As opposed to, say, America, where it takes like days if you want to go across somewhere, where we're within 4 or 5 hours at the most of anywhere in Scotland.
Pretty much. I mean, once you get right up to the tip of like the Highlands, that can take you. That's a fair old slog.
Yeah.
But the scenery is incredible. Because when we were doing that Highland tour, we went up and down the Great Glen because we were travelling to all these little places, and the scenery was incredible. Because I was driving the minibus. I was mostly on the tour to drive the minibus, I think. I had about 9 lines in the play, but I could drive the bus, so I was like, and we went everywhere, and there were days when it was just stunning. And like I said, going to little islands, and down in the Borders, the Fries and Galloway is a beautiful part of the world as well.
The Borders, I think, and I'm considering it's really close. It's one of these places that kind of gets forgotten about a little bit. We really only talk about the Central Belt and then the Highlands, and you get Perth and things because you go, well, that's the gateway to the Highlands. And the Borders kind of gets a little bit forgot about, which is a shame because, like you said, it is beautiful. It is stunning.
Oh, stunning. We've got such gorgeous coastlines, and I suppose we're really lucky in a way that we haven't overdeveloped as much of our countryside as we could do. I mean, there's vast tracts of Argyll and Bute, which are staggeringly beautiful and almost completely empty.
Yeah.
Loch Gilphead's another really nice place. There's a couple of proper cracking wee coffee shops in Loch Gilphead, and Campbelltown, all down that way, right down into the wee pointy tip bit of the Mullicantyre. There's like my cousin's got married in Campbelltown area because his wife is from Carradale, which is like a wee tiny place, and just in the bottom of Argyll and Bute, and it was stunning. It's just gorgeous. These beautiful beaches, and there's golf courses and all sorts of stuff. It's, yeah, Scotland's a, we forget sometimes, and the thing is, we've got loads of great touristy things as well. We've got brilliant museums, and we've got tons of theatres, and so there's loads of other stuff to do, sort of city stuff. But if you when you get out into the country, it's proper crack-a-lacking. It's just great.
Yeah, it really is. We are incredibly lucky. We really it's every time I get a chance to talk to someone, the appreciation we have for our own scenery is outstanding, because I think we moan about the rain, but it's because of it that it looks so stunning.
Absolutely. And it has to be said, like, Glasgow on a rainy day doesn't look dreadful, but Glasgow on a sunny day can be really, like, if you get good weather here, it's proper good stuff. It's beautiful. There's days when I get up and I'm just like, oh, looking out the window thinking, and I'm living just in a suburb of the city, but it's a pretty place. It can be a really pretty place.
But you sort of mentioned it as well. But our skylight, the colours that we get are sometimes just you'd think it was painted.
Yeah, I always wish I could I wish I was either a really good painter or I had an amazing camera, because every so often I take pictures of the sky, and it's never the same in the photo as what you're seeing in real life, and and the snow as well. It can be a really pretty place when it snows. For the first month, after that, it gets a bit dull.
Yeah, we get over it very quickly, don't we? We go, oh, look, it's snow. And then after about 2-3 days, we're like, right, you're getting in the way now.
Yeah. It's really nice.
It's like, because we were supposed to be getting, right now, the last 2 days, the weather said it's going to be really bad snow. It's going to be really, really bad snow. And all we've had is rain for 2 days.
Hasn't even rained here. It's just, it's kind of cold, but that's about it. So the wind's quite cold.
It's like every morning I get up to take the dogs a walk, who you might have heard, because the postman dared to come to the house a minute ago in the middle when we were chatting, and they don't like the postman. But every morning I take the dogs out just before the little one wakes up. I try to get them out for a wee walk so they can get some attention just for themselves. And the last 2 days I've been looking out, because one of our dogs, Neville, is a wire-haired dachshund crossed with something we don't know. But snow mats to him. It really gets matted to him, and even putting him in the bath to try to warm water off takes a while, because it just gets matted in there. So the last 2 days I've been looking out the window going, oh, it's supposed to be really bad snow. Nope, it's fine. Out we go. On we go. Because it's just rain. But it does, like I said, it gives us this incredible greenness, and that just it seemed to be believed, really, I think. If someone was going to come, sorry, I've jumped on to the next question there. The segues are for professionals, so that's fine.
Absolutely.
I know.
Really believe in them.
I know. It's a fantasy made up by people who with money, the 1%. The people, like I kind of touched on before, I'm very lucky with the people that watch the channel from all over the world for various reasons. And I've had a lot of questions lately, because a lot of people planning on coming over, I've had to replan or rebook a couple of times now. So they're getting more time to plan a bit longer. Really, I suppose is the only upside you can kind of go. So if someone's coming over, what would be your top tips?
In terms of where to go, or in terms
anything?
Anything.
If someone was coming over to old Scotty land,
hire a car. I think that would be my number one tip, would be to hire a car for at least some of your trip, so that you can properly go and explore outside of the Central Belt. I would do a mixture. So I would do a period of my trip in a city and spend time seeing the stuff in the city, and do things like do the bus tour. The bus tour of Glasgow is great. I've been on it and it's really good. And
I love the bus tours. I've done them here as well. I think they're brilliant.
fab. And do like a ghost tour in Edinburgh or something, because they're brilliant, and you'll get to see bits of the city you would never have stumbled across otherwise. So yeah, do a bus tour or a walking tour. Hire a car. Go and see at least one of the castles. I'm a fan of Glamis personally. I'm very partial to a bit of Glamis Castle. Or where else? There's so many castles. You can spend the rest of your life going to castles. Don't go to all of them because that'll be really expensive. But yeah,
You can't throw a stone in Scotland without hitting a castle, truthfully.
no, but Glamis is lovely. I did like Glamis, and the grounds were beautiful. Probably I would say try and come not in the depths of winter because it will be very cold. Or if you are coming in the depths of winter, bring your heavy coat.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many times the first thing people say is bring a good coat.
Aye. No, absolutely. Good coat, warm shoes, warm waterproof shoes.
That's good to walk in.
You're staying in the city, make sure your shoes are warm and waterproof because your feet will be cold and wet.
Yeah.
Watch out for the poop on the pavements because some people don't pick up. It's most people haven't tried any kind of deep fried most things. I know it looks like that from abroad, that's what people do. They don't really. There's so much the actual foodie side of life in Glasgow and Edinburgh now is really
it's like coming on leaps and bounds. And you're right, we've got a reputation for deep frying everything, but we don't really.
I've never eaten a deep fried sweetie of any variety, not just a Mars, but I've never seen one in a shop. I've never wanted one. I've never eaten one. I have tried
one, but I only tried it during the first lockdown, and I made it here because obviously I couldn't go out to film. So I was trying to think of things to sort of do. I said, I will make a deep fried Mars bar. So I made one. And you know what? It was okay. I wouldn't do it again though.
No, I've never really seen the appeal, to be honest. I mean, I frequent chippies on occasion, as most people have done during their life.
I have been known to frequent the odd chippy, yeah.
Exactly. I'm quite partial to a chip steak, which is like filth because it's just grease, really.
However, considering your side of the country and my side of the country, I'm going to say chip shop sauce.
It's disgusting. You're all wrong.
No, we're not right.
You are. That's not right.
No, it is right.
Salt and vinegar.
No,
that's what you have on chips.
That's boring. That's just boring. It's chippy sauce.
It's not. If you want to add brown sauce or tomato sauce or any kind of sauce, you go for your life, but not in the vinegar. You get the salt and the vinegar, and then you make your own choices of the sauce.
We shall agree to disagree.
Well,
otherwise,
if it makes you feel better about being wrong, you go ahead.
I feel we may start a small civil war if we keep going.
That's another thing. Don't raise the salt and vinegar, salt and sauce. There's a top tip. Yeah. Don't have that conversation. Yeah. Other top tips. Go to the seaside for fish and chips, or go to Inverary. There's a really good chip shop in Inverary that's worth stopping at. Go to Inverary Jail. It's good.
Inverary Jail is good.
It's great.
Yeah.
Go to Kelvin Grove Museum if you're in Glasgow because there's some fantastic stuff in there. Proper, like, just mind-blowingly lovely. And incredible art. Just beautiful. The paintings are amazing. What other top tips? It's mostly practical things I'm thinking of here.
Practical's good though. Practical is a top tip. Because
pack lunch with you if you're going in the car, just in case. A wee snacks and stuff in the car is good. Watch out for potholes.
I try to take snacks with me in the car, even if I'm not going on a big drive. I'm going to get hungry.
Absolutely. Yeah, be cautious when you're driving because the roads are quite potholey at the moment.
Yeah,
if you're coming this year, do watch out. But equally, don't be afraid to sort of smile at people and say hello. And if people say hello to you, they're not up to anything. They're just saying hello.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll get a hello back. If you say hello to someone, you'll get a hello back, or you'll get a hey, or
yeah,
you'll get something. You'll get an acknowledgement.
absolutely. What other top tips?
You know what? While you're thinking, just you reminded me of a little story. I was wandering along Market Street in Edinburgh, and I saw this couple one day. I think they were American. It's a while ago now. I can't quite remember. And they had a map. They had a map of Edinburgh, but it was one of these really central Edinburgh, multicolored, really, proper, almost like looked like a kid's map. It was that kind of design, and they couldn't figure out where they were. And I just stopped and helped them. And I went, "You okay? You look a bit lost. Let me show you where you are." Da, da, da. And they looked properly confused. They were like, "Oh, okay, thanks," right, because they didn't expect me just to stop and help. They made me laugh, but I could see the general confusion on their face going. Because then I left. They was like, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah, I think yeah. Don't let that throw you because people will, particularly if you look a wee bit lost or confused. You will get people going, "You all right, pet? Are you looking for something?"
Yeah,
And yeah, it's just people being nice. They
yeah,
do.
yeah.
They try and
We'll
help
do
you out.
that. We're nice that way.
I'm
It's not
trying to
all like
think.
that scene in Trainspotting where the first day of the Edinburgh Festival, and the guy goes to the toilet and they all go in and mug him. Very rarely does that happen.
Absolutely.
I
Um,
like. I'll finish up because I know you've got a life to get back to, but I like to finish things with what I call it difficult questions for us Scots.
okay.
Okay, so shortbread or tablet?
Shortbread.
Took you a minute there. Took
It
a
did.
minute.
It's not an easy decision, and I,
Yeah.
and I may question my life choices later, but I'm going to go shortbread.
See, I think. See, all of these questions that I've got, I love them because it really does. It makes us have to make a decision, which we don't normally have to make. But tablet, I mean, I love tablet, but it is just hard sugar.
Yeah. The thing with tablet is, if it's bad tablet, it's rotten.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. If it's
Whereas,
badly made tablet,
yeah, it's harder to mess up shortbread.
yeah, and even a bad shortbread, you can still enjoy it with a cup of tea. You can still be like, oh, it's not the best shortbread, but I'll eat it anyway. Whereas
But
you
like a proper
might put a
honk.
you might put a bad tablet to the side.
Oh yeah. If you've had a real honker of a tablet, you would be like, no, I'm not. I'm not putting that in my mouth. That's not happening. No.
What I've said this before in a couple of interviews as well, but what I'm loving is because round the world people know shortbread. Round the world people don't know tablet.
No. It's just
So when
condensed milk and sugar just boiled within an inch of his life, really.
I know, but more and more people are like, going, "Oh, I've got to try tablet now when I come to Scotland." I'm like, "Yeah, you do. I mean, bring a spare set of teeth because they're going to rot." But yes, yeah,
But
you've got to try it.
but that's the thing. Well, here's a top tip. Go into coffee shops and if you see the wee Lotus Biscoff things, leave and wait till you see one that's got like a wee tub of tablet. Because they'll give
Yeah,
you tablet for free just to have with your coffee. They put two
yeah,
wee bits on the side and you're like, oh yum. Mm.
I'll have a bit of that.
Oh.
Iron brew or whiskey?
Iron brew. I'm very rubbish at drinking and I hate whiskey. Sorry,
D-
Scotland.
You know what? I think that's been a 50-50 split with that one. You'd be surprised. It's an acquired taste. Whiskey is an acquired taste.
It's just burny. It's really burny. I'm not good at that. It's too burny for me. I
I've
did
only
have
just
uh,
I've only just recently, in the past year and a half, been trying to learn about whiskey, and I do mean trying because it's not a drink I've ever really indulged in.
there are I used to work in a pub and they made us taste a whole load of malts like at one point, and there were a couple that weren't like horrific. There were a couple that I was like, well, I could drink that, but it was still
And
it was
once I was on
burning.
in my ninth or tenth, I was getting.
No, I mean it was like I was like I'm taking a minuscule sip of this because I'm not good at this anyway. But there are some. Is it Springbank? I think there's a Springbank single malt that I tried that was actually quite nice. And but the yeah, it's a very very acquired taste. So yeah, I would go Iron Brew.
Are you one of these people that can taste the difference with the new Iron Brew, or can you not tell?
No, it's not really. I'm not noticing the difference.
Yeah, I can't tell either. I think
So
there's a part of me that likes to get the 1909 stuff just because I know it's got a lot of sugar in it. But for the most part, I can't tell the difference really. I feel like that makes me more worse of a Scots than not liking whiskey.
possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Square sausage or black pudding?
Square sausage.
That's
I had a rolling square sausage for my lunch. It was great. Love a square sausage.
See, a square sausage I think is a very Scottish thing. I don't know why, but I think that seems like a very Scottish thing.
Did you know this is? I saw this on like a DVD's extras or something. In the Star Trek movie, the reboot, Simon Pegg's married to a Scottish woman, right?
Yeah.
Glasgow woman, I think. And in the scene where he's just come out of the pipe and everybody's having an argument, he's kind of in the background going, "I'm quite hungry. Could I have a sandwich and a towel?" In one of the takes, he said, "Can I have a square sausage and a piece of square sausage and a towel?" Because it's a really Scottish thing. And they were like, "Yeah, we can't put that in because that sounds like made up science fiction food." He's like, "No, it's real food.
It's real food. It's like
It's actually people eat it in Scotland today." And they were like, "No, you can't say that."
it's like phone Scotland and ask them.
Yes.
We'll all be like, yes. Hello, Scotland speaking. Yes, square sausage. Thank you very much. Haggis, neeps and tatties, or mince and tatties?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. I'm not here for the easy questions.
It kind of depends on the mood.
Yeah.
It really does. And it also depends who's making the mince.
Yeah. You're not wrong there. You're really
And
not wrong.
haggis, in fact. Because you can have bad haggis, but you can also have really bad mince if the wrong person have made them.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think for argument's sake, you've got to pick someone that you've got to pick a dish that you know is made well by the same person and then decide from that.
I'm going to go mince and tatties, but I want turnip with it.
See, this is the thing, and again, I've mentioned this in a couple of interviews. One of the people that watched the channel was actually on the Great Bake Off in America, and they reached out and they wanted Scottish recipes. And I mentioned mince and tatties, but um, there's no one recipe.
No, the only thing because I've seen people not do this and it's horrendous, is please brown the mince. Oh my God, please brown the mince. Don't just sludge it in with water because it's horrific. So brown the mince, but after that, there's the question of carrots, there's the question of onions, whether you add gravy, and is that gravy granules, stock cubes, is it actual meat gravy? Oh my God, it's like an infinite variety.
Yeah, we could be going all day. Is it peas or is it no peas? Yeah, you got to have peas. No, you can't. You could go
no
forever.
Peas and mince.
You've got to have some. My mum always made peas.
No peas and mince. No peas. Carrots, but no peas. No.
Last but by no means least, Tunnock's tea cakes or caramel wafers?
Again, it's a toughie.
Yeah.
I'm going to go caramel wafer.
You know what? Tea cakes were winning for a long time, but I feel caramel wafers are taking them over.
An occasional tea cake. I'll tell you, this is a true story. So during lockdown, I filmed a thing for a series called The End, which is just an online thing. And the character I was playing was eating Tunnock's tea cakes. And I was like, brilliant. So I bought Tunnock's tea cakes. But obviously I had to do more than one take. And see, after about 4, I was like, I don't know if I can face one of these for years after this. An individual tea cake on occasion is amazing. But the thing is, I could probably eat a caramel wafer every day, but I couldn't eat a tea cake every day because I'd get sickened of them faster. They are amazing though. And the guy who runs the factory, Boyd Tunnock, apparently is a really, really, really nice guy and takes tremendous care of his staff. Always did.
Yeah, I've heard that. And I've heard doing the tour of the factory is incredible. Seeing that just these Tunnock's tea cakes just coming out. It's just supposed to be amazing. But no, I think you're right. When you were talking there, I was thinking, I was like, you know what? When we buy biscuits for the house, I will quite regularly buy a pack of caramel wafers. And for a treat every now and again, I will buy tea cakes. So
They are amazing. There's no question of it. They're amazing, and you should totally have one. But a box is 4 too many.
Well, there's 2 of us, so it's fine.
No, I just mean like, you know, in a sitting, a box is
Yeah.
4. Two is doable, but beyond 2 is you start to feel quite sick.
Yeah, whereas I suppose you could munch your way through a pack of caramel wafers in a day quite
Oh yeah,
easily.
easy.
Quite
I don't know why I've put on weight during lockdown, but yeah, absolutely.
Karen, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sparing the time and coming on, and the 2 of us starting a new civil war between Edinburgh and Glasgow. It's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much.
Lovely to chat to you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
That was great. That was lovely chatting to Karen. She was so much fun that you can probably tell we had a proper laugh there, although I am worried that we may have started a civil war between Glasgow and Edinburgh, but hopefully we can just skim over that a little bit. But Karen, thank you so much for sparing your time. It was really, really great to chat to you. It was a real proper laugh there. If you enjoyed that, guys, as you know, please remember, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, but keep yourself safe out there. Till next time, bye humans.